Today we are going to discuss about St. Coleridge and St. Coleridge as a romantic criticism. So first of all, we'll discuss Coleridge's romantic ideas. Like a true romantic, Coleridge sought inspiration from nature, but he believed that nature can only inspire poetry in a poet. For it to be effective, this inspiration needs the imagination that is supplied by the poet's mind. So it was not nature alone, but how the poet chose to portray it using his imagination that made poetry worth. Thus, Coleridge was of the opinion that outward world can only inspire poetry, but to shape it well, the poet needs to seek help of his own imaginative faculties. This ideas of Coleridge is echoed in Dejection and Ode. For example, we are discussing Coleridge. Romanticism is best observed in his stress on the faculty of imagination. Yes, as Coleridge is discussing about the imagination and he was the worth poet, but he is saying that nature is there, but the writer is supposed to deal the things with his own imagination. If the nature is there, this is another thing, but the writer has to discuss all the things with the strong imagination. As earlier we have discussed the imagination concept of Wordsworth. So now we are discussing that St. Coleridge is saying that a writer is something else, nature is something else, and imagination is something else. As strong imagination will be there, as strong poetry will be there. As strong nature will be there, and the combination of imagination will be there, the poetry will be strong with the strong sort of imagination. So Coleridge elaborately distinguished imagination from fancy. He believed that imagination was the living power and the prime agent of all human perception. Coleridge's obsession with imagination is observed in many of his poems. By loss of imagination, the speaker of Dejection and Ode laments of the loss of his genuine spirits. As he says, I see, not feel. Yes, he is saying, I see, not feel. So that is some sort of imagination he is using. In keeping with the romantic emphasis on pleasure, Coleridge put forward his ideas of the willing suspension of disbelief. He believed that for the reader to seek pleasure from a work of literature, the reader should be able to suspend his disbelief temporarily for the sake of artistic pleasure. Yes, this sort of imagination and feeling over reason and logic was central to romantic movement. Coleridge was of the opinion that the ability to perceive nature and beauty are central in the understanding of art. He believed that no work of art can have an existence until perceived actively by the human minds. This idea found an expression in the poet's famous lines, O lady, we receive but what we give, and in our life alone does nature live. So in the further stressing on role of the mind actively create and perceive things, Coleridge proposed the idea of asymplastic, as he meant the unifying power of imagination. For him, it is primary imagination that holds the ability to perceive. The secondary imagination merely works as an agent to organize what has been perceived by the primary imagination into a unified whole. Also, imagination is different from fancy because imagination is active and fancy is passive. So while imagination is a creative faculty, fancy is merely a repository. Yes, he is saying again and again that imagination is a strong thing in poetry. As the writers are concerned, as the other things are concerned, as the things which we are going to deal within the poetry and the worth of the writer. Fancy is something else and imagination is the powerful aspect in the poetry. And he is saying that we are not going to deal with the fancy as well as we are dealing with the poetry. And he is saying secondary imagination is there and primary imagination is there, but this fancy is something else. So the main thing to discuss in this topic is that imagination. A writer is something else. I am going to repeat again. Writer's thoughts are something else. Nature is something else. And other things are also something else. But the thing which is very common and which is very important in all perspective is imagination. As writer will go with the imagination, and the strong imagination will be there, so poetry will be strong. So on this point we can say fancy is something else and imagination is something else. And St. Coleridge is dealing with the primary imagination and secondary imagination, and he is saying again and again that the fancy is the concept of something else, and as strong our imagination will be there, as strong poetry will be there. So now the thing is that according to St. Coleridge, nature is also a thing, but strong thing is imagination of a poet. As the imagination will be strong, the poet will build up the strong poetry. So the second point is Coleridge's conception of nature. Coleridge's love of nature was also in accordance with the every romantic poet's fondness for nature, while Keats admired nature for its beauty and Wordsworth praised it for the memory it evoked in the observer. So for him, elements of nature were manifestation of some deeper truths, thus the only a bird but a symbol of guilt. Similarly, Coleridge believed that the nightingale song was not dull, as he remarked the nightingale, a conversation poem, that in nature there is nothing melancholy. The rhyme of the ancient mariner reveals the unmerciful face of nature. His deception of nature is thereby different from the other romantic poet. His famous lines, "Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink," show nature in crisis despite such seeming abundance. Yes, all the writers are having their own views regarding nature, but the St. Coleridge is having some sort of different view regarding nature, as Wordsworth is there, as St. Coleridge and other romantic poets are there. But St. Coleridge is dealing with some sort of another level of nature, as he is saying that water, water everywhere, but not any drop to drink. So this is showing nature in crisis despite such seeming abundance. On the other hand, we can say water is some sort of nature, but he is saying water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. So we are having the water, but we are not able to drink the water. Means that we have demolished the nature. We have been done with some sort of dirt. So this is the thing, as nature is there, as we are saying that William Wordsworth is a poet of nature and he is discussing about some sort of the things. But the thing is that St. Coleridge is saying that water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. So the third one is Coleridge romanticism. Thus we can say Coleridge saw nature not merely as a source of beautiful landscape and melodious birds, but also full of risks and dangers. He nonetheless sought inspiration from nature for his poetry. Imagination and the ability to actively perceive the world was central to his ideas of romanticism. He advocated a willing suspension of disbelief for the sake of pleasure, which was also the key of concern for the romantics. Yes, romanticism, we are dealing with some sort of the thing, and he is going to conclude that other writers are having their own view. But the St. Coleridge, as the romanticism is concerned, St. Coleridge is very keen in nature and the romanticism, because all the other writers are having their own view in the romantic age, in romantic era, in romanticism. But St. Coleridge is having their own view, as they are saying that nature is there, but we have demolished the nature. And he is saying that all the writers are depicting the nature positively, but he is going to capture the things as the humans are demolishing the nature. He is telling us. On the other hand, we are saying that, as Wordsworth is saying, everything is nature. He is saying that we are going to deal with some sort of citation is also a nature. But St. Coleridge is saying that nature exists, but how we have deal with the nature. Basically, that is the point, and that is the view of St. Coleridge. And he is saying again and again, imagination is a strong point within the dealing of poetry. But the thing is that he is saying that we have demolished the nature. Mean we can conclude that nature is pretty, but we have demolished the nature. On the other hand, we can say that St. Coleridge is showing us the other side of nature, as the other writers are showing us positive image of nature. On the other hand, St. Coleridge is depicting on the negative side of nature. That's all.